Welcome to the best of first-person episodes from Phantoms and Monsters. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of all future uploads.
Penelope of the Sierra Nevada Mountains. Sir, my brother referred your email address to me. He thought you may have an answer to what I saw this past July while camping in the Sierra Nevada Mountains, near Tioga Lake, California. My teenage son and I were camping in our RV. There were other campers in the area but not very close to us. On the third night of our trip, we encountered something that neither of us can explain. This is bear country and I know that there have been Bigfoot reports over the years. But what we saw was neither as far as we can tell. We secured all of the food and other supplies in the RV and were getting ready to go to bed. It was about 12:30 a.m. My son fell asleep quickly while I was getting a few things ready as we were going to leave this location later in the morning. I was looking at a map when I started to hear high-pitched screams. At first I thought it was a coyote, but it was a single scream and sounded more human, like a woman's scream. I opened the RV door and stood silent in the doorway. Once again the high-pitched scream started. This time, it woke my son. We both stood at the door as the screams continued from the direction of the mountain. After about 10 minutes the screams stopped. We both went to bed. Something startled me while I was sleeping because I woke in a panic. I looked at my watch, it was 2:40 a.m. Then all of a sudden that same high-pitched scream erupted outside of the RV. As it started my son jumped out of his rack and fell to the floor. I grabbed my .44 just in case. As we looked out through the windshield the moonlight was bright enough to illuminate a tall thin creature with light-colored skin. My son yelled, "Zombie." It did look like a female human form, but the face and the rest of the body looked horrible. It reminded me of an old witch, no clothes, deformed face, long light-colored hair, long arms and legs. I figured it stood almost 7 feet. It was walking away from the RV toward the lake. I had seen enough. I made sure everything was ready to go and drove out of there ASAP. We ended up near Mono Lake. A few days later I was able to talk to a ranger as he walked through the camping area. He was an older guy and quite engaging. I described what we witnessed. My son also verified what we had seen. The ranger got a serious look on his face and said that over the years, something similar had been reported a few times. He said that they called it Penelope, but he didn't know why it had gotten that name. That's all he knew. When I got home I searched the internet, but no information was available. My brother gave me your email address and said you may have an idea of what it was. I'd appreciate your help. LR.
Is Penelope more than an urban legend? Hi, I was searching for things in the Sierra Nevadas, and I came across a story on your page about a creature named Penelope. The entire encounter and creature described by the LR person who sent the original email was something my entire family and myself had witnessed many years ago. We were camping near Convict Lake, California, but further back in the woods. There were 3 other groups of campers in the campground, and it was late spring. On our second night there, around 1 a.m., just outside my old Nissan Datsun 6-pack camper my father, mother, and I heard a very loud scream. Other people in the camp heard it as well, because when I look out the window I saw lights in all the tents turn on. Following the loud scream, a second scream came from the hill across the stream. There were 2 of these creatures. A minute or 2 went by and then again, from the same location, we heard another loud blood-curdling scream. It then proceeded to begin running in the direction of the creature across the stream. It must have been large because my dad is 6'4", 300 pounds, and could not make the same loud thuds this creature made when running. We only got a look at part of it as it emerged from the brush when crossing the stream. It was a whitish blur, at least that's what we saw. Even though several campers had weapons, we left right then and there. This was back in 1986. I don't really believe in Bigfoot, aliens, etc. But whatever this was, it was real and it was real big. I will never go camping without at least a shotgun since that incident. Thanks, M.
Another Penelope encounter. I have been searching for months to find answers to what it is my wife and I saw near Labor Day 2014 while camping in the eastern Sierras in the Mono Village area. Most websites are just so outlandish and full of people that want to believe in monsters or UFOs. It just became frustrating that any hope of putting together the puzzle and maybe learning something from these rare experiences would be lost. I read the reported sighting of the man and his son, seeing a tall skinny witch-looking thing outside his RV in the same region. Also, I was very interested in an article that discussed the Bigfoot problem and how people might be seeing ghosts of animals from the past. This is why it's so hard to gather evidence on. Maybe they materialize and dematerialize, and we are just lucky to be present. This seems like a legitimate explanation to me because the creature I saw running by the road if living, breathing and hunting in our physical world would send all the people that live in Mono County back to the city once reports came of its appearance. I have been coming to the same area to camp and fish for over 30 years. Hell, it's 40 years to be exact. The Twin Lakes Resort in Bridgeport, California, right on the California-Nevada border, about an hour north of Mono Lake. High elevation, tons of wildlife and great fishing. One-way road up to the Twins ending at the base of the huge mountain range, north side of Yosemite. My parents brought me when I was 5, and now I bring them and my family every year, so I am very familiar with the wildlife. On many occasions had up-close experiences with many of its inhabitants. For instance, one time a bear was spooked and backed up into my tent, sending me flying over the other 2 people in my tent. I've seen some stuff. My family loves to fish, mostly catch and release. My favorite pastime is hiking and bird and animal watching. I have developed a keen eye for locating and identifying all types of wildlife. To give you an example of what I have personally seen in this valley: mountain lion, Sierra moose, bald eagle, golden eagle nesting, mountain goats, osprey, king snake, the list goes on. The point I'm trying to make is I've seen every kind of animal in this wilderness, and I have a great knowledge of every other species of animal all over the world. Nature and wildlife have been a lifelong interest of mine and been the subject of much of my art since a child. Knowing the body parts and how they move together has been essential to understand as an artist. Okay, now to the sighting. My wife, stepson and myself were headed to the creek for some daybreak fishing. We left before dawn to get the car parked and walk to the creek. The time must have been close to 5:30 a.m. and it was still very dark and a slight fog. This trip, which is about a quarter mile from cabin to creek, is always full of nocturnal animals headed home after raiding the local campgrounds. So mule deer, black bear and huge jackrabbits crossing the road is no surprise. Like I have done 100 times before, keep an eye out, slow down, hit the high beams to illuminate the beasts with eyes reflecting my car lights. This time my lights caught something crossing the road that did not have reflective nocturnal eyes, so I slowed down immediately to about 20 miles per hour and tried my best to identify what it was. I was having trouble doing so since the thing was moving very low to the ground. Its belly just inches from touching the ground. It appeared very pale or white, so I think goat or sheep. I immediately remembered decades ago there had been sheep herders on the side of the hill, but they had been gone for many years. Well, when my high beams hit this thing, it turned its long neck and glared at us and almost shook its head as if we pissed it off and didn't want to be seen at all. At first sight it was crossing the street almost diagonally, headed our way, then along the side of the road in our direction. Now my wife had seen it from the start, but I needed extra time so that I could ID it and give her an explanation of what type of animal it was, like I always do. I asked her, "What is that?" I just wanted to make sure she was seeing and observing the same thing I was. Now the first odd thing that I couldn't understand, besides the way it was crawling so low to the ground. Unlike a hunting cat, the legs were all wrong. Its knees seemed to be backwards, but it was running on them. My thought was that it was an escaped sheep or goat that had broken knees, and it was running for its life because it was moving fast. As it came closer and closer towards us, I could hardly take my eyes off its freaky legs. I still lay awake at night puzzled by how they were working. I've not seen any mammal move this way. The closest thing would be a crab or insect. The front and back legs moved together in unison. There was no bouncing, swaying, galloping or jumping like that of a mammal. To me it looked like a puppet with a marionette moving it along. So unreal, like one of H.R. Geiger's alien creatures is shown climbing around super fast, with only its arms and legs moving. By this time my wife could only get out what the hell, as we saw it from maybe 50 yards away to about 20 yards. You could see that it had no fur at all, just pale, sinewy stretched skin over long, skinny well-defined limbs. Its broken knees were long skinny fingers or claws, a foot long or more. The torso was maybe the size of a large goat, but it also had broad shoulders, very human. Possibly like this thing normally walks upright. This is what my wife kept pointing out. The shoulders made it look human. All this was freaky, but we both stared intensely, as to figure out what it was. When as we got closer the face became more and more defined. The first second we laid eyes on it, the face and head did not make sense. But I put my mind at ease saying to myself, well, it looks strange now, but when you get face to face you will see a familiar goat snout, or cat or canine nose or jackrabbit face. No. This thing looked like it came out of a horror movie. Like a space alien creature or humanoid monster. The nose I was looking for was not there, just a flat opening with two nose holes high up on the face. No ears. Just small holes on the side of its head, but whatever they were smaller than a human's for sure. It had high brow ridge bones, but the skull did not have a huge human cranium, more like the size of a chimp's. It had a large chin that protruded, maybe strong jawbones. But this part I totally don't get at all. The eyes. I saw these large eye sockets off in the distance, but they never reflected in the light. As it came nearer and nearer I saw the color red, not like a light that was glowing, but maybe many veins. The blood within was giving it the darkest color on this pale beast. As we were within 10 to 15 yards away I only saw sockets and no eyeball, like that of a blind cave fish. Now this blew me away. I thought, how is this thing turning its head to glare at me with no eyes? Was it a ghost? But as it passed us and I came to a complete stop I saw it zip into the chaparral and kick up dust. This thing had been flesh and blood at least for the 15 to 20 seconds that we observed it. I might add there was no smell or anything else odd that we noticed. I should have taken pictures of the tracks, but did not think to do it because I was very puzzled and thought maybe we had witnessed a ghost because of how unreal it appeared. I was also with my family, which I am very protective of. Normally if I had been alone I would be on the trail. What this thing was doing so close to a campground puzzles me. My wife said, even though I was only thinking it, this thing seemed intelligent and was creeping in the dark. Mad at us for discovering it. The mouth was closed, but it had tight closed lips that almost seemed to grin. I did not see any teeth, large canine or flat herbivores. Its skull was that of a predator, not prey, with eye sockets positioned on the front, not the sides. I have seen a great many extraordinary things in my life, so I have learned to be a great eyewitness and not jump to conclusions, only observe, make note and evaluate later. My wife is the biggest skeptic I have ever met, not fully believing the many extraordinary stories I have told. She comes from a lifetime of cold, hard, harsh reality, no room for any stretch of the imagination. Well, now she is a believer and is afraid to this day of what is walking around those Sierra Nevada mountains. I would be open for correspondence. Thank you, Steve M.
This is Lon Strickler. If you like this program, it would help us if you would give it a thumbs up. Then subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notification when we upload new first-person encounters. We have many more to come very soon. And by the way, if you have a suggestion or an experience of your own, please leave a comment.